The slave market stank of fear and desperation. Day stood on the metal platform, his wrists bound in energy cuffs that hummed with alien technology. Around him, creatures from a dozen different worlds waited to be sold. Some cried, some prayed to gods that didn't answer anymore. Day didn't either. He simply stood there watching everything with dark, quiet eyes. The auction hall was massive, built by the Kryn Empire to process thousands of slaves every day. Bright lights hung from the ceiling, making sure the buyers could see every detail of the merchandise. That's what they called the captives now. Merchandise, not people. Not anymore. 3 Kryn warriors stood near the front of the crowd. They were huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that gleamed like polished stone. Their race had conquered half the known galaxy. They feared nothing, and they let everyone know it. "Look at the human section," one of them rumbled, his voice like grinding rocks. "Those weak little primates. What use are they?" His companions laughed. The sound echoed through the hall. "I heard their planet fell in less than a year," another Kryn said. 20 billion of them, and they couldn't even fight back properly. Pathetic. Day heard every word. He didn't react. Reaction meant emotion, and emotion meant weakness. He'd learned that 20 years ago when the ships came to Earth, when the sky burned and the cities fell, when humanity learned it wasn't alone in the universe and that the universe didn't care. The auctioneer, a squat creature with too many eyes, gestured toward Day. "Next item. Human male. Age approximately 28 standard years. Healthy. No defects. Suitable for manual labor, basic technical work, or personal service. Starting bid 500 credits. Silence fell over the crowd. Nobody wanted humans. They were too weak for hard labor. Too stupid for technical work, the buyers thought. Too proud for personal service. They broke too easily or not at all. 200, someone finally called out, their voice bored. The auctioneer's eyes drooped with disappointment. 200 credits. Any advance on 1,500? Every head in the auction hall turned. The voice came from the back, clear and cold. Day shifted slightly, just enough to see who had spoken. She stood like royalty because she was royalty. Princess Hana of the Velon hierarchy moved through the crowd, and it parted before her like water. Her skin had a faint, crystalline quality that caught the light. Her eyes were the color of deep space, black with distant stars. She wore simple clothes, but they cost more than everything else in the room combined. Behind her walked 2 guards. The first was Commander Taiyang, a Velon warrior whose reputation reached across 3 sectors. The second was Minji, the princess's advisor, whose sharp eyes missed nothing. The auctioneer stammered. "But 1,500 credits. That's 3 times the asking price, Your Highness." "Surely, did I stutter?" Hana asked quietly. "No, Your Highness, sold. Sold to Princess Hana of Velon." The Kryn warriors who had been mocking earlier moved closer. The largest one, whose scales bore the marks of 100 battles, stepped into Hana's path. "Princess," he said, his voice dripping with false respect.
"Why waste money on human trash?"
"If you need slaves, buy something useful. Or better yet, let me gift you one of my captured Thran fighters. Real warriors, not these weak animals." Hana looked up at the massive warrior. She barely reached his chest. "Step aside, General Vrek. I'm simply offering advice, Princess. Your hierarchy is small. You can't afford to waste resources on—" "I said step aside." Something in her voice made the general move. Perhaps it was the tone. Perhaps it was the way Commander Taiyang's hand moved closer to his weapon. Either way, the Kryn warrior backed up, his scales flushing with barely contained anger. Hana walked past him without another glance. She moved up to the platform where Day stood. Up close, she was smaller than he expected. Delicate almost, but her eyes held something ancient and sharp. She studied him for a long moment. Day stared back, his face empty of expression. "What's your name?" she asked. "D. Just D? Just Day. Can you fight, Day? Can you afford to find out, Princess?" Several guards reached for their weapons. Commander Taiyang moved forward, his face dark with anger. But Hana held up one hand, stopping them all. A small smile touched her lips. "I like you already," she said softly. Then she turned to the auctioneer. "Process the transaction. I'm taking him now." 5 minutes later, Day walked out of the auction hall. His wrists were still bound, but now he belonged to the Velon hierarchy. The energy cuffs had been keyed to Hana's personal codes. If he tried to run, they would activate. If he tried to attack her, they would knock him unconscious. He was property. Expensive property, but still property. They walked through the crowded streets of Velthar Prime. The trading hub never slept. Ships came and went at all hours, carrying cargo, both legal and otherwise. Aliens from 1,000 worlds moved through the market districts. Some stared at the princess. Most pretended not to see her. Royalty meant danger, and smart people avoided danger. Hana led them to a private docking bay where a sleek ship waited. It was smaller than the massive cargo haulers that filled most of the port, but it moved like a blade through water. Fast. Dangerous. Built for speed and survival. Not comfort. Inside the ship, Hana finally spoke again. They were alone except for Commander Taiyang and Minji. The guards had remained outside. "Remove his cuffs," Hana told Taiyang. "Your Highness, that's not—" "Remove them, Commander." Taiyang moved forward, his movements careful. He pressed a control device and the energy cuffs fell away from Day's wrists. Day rubbed the skin there, red and raw from days of wear. He didn't attack. He didn't run. He simply waited. "Do you know why I bought you?" Hana asked. "No." "Because I know what you are." "A slave." "No." Hana moved closer. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper meant only for him. "You're human. That means you're a survivor. Your species has been conquered, scattered across the galaxy, sold and traded like animals, but you're still alive, still fighting even when nobody can see it. I can see it, Day. I can see it in your eyes." Day said nothing. Hana leaned even closer. Her lips were almost touching his ear when she whispered 3 words that changed everything. "He's ours." She pulled back, looking at Commander Taiyang and Minji. They both nodded slowly, understanding something Day didn't. The ship's engines hummed to life. Through the viewport, Velthar Prime fell away below them. Day watched the slave markets shrink to nothing, then disappear as they broke atmosphere. He was owned by a princess now. He should have felt trapped. Instead, for the first time in years, Day felt something else. He felt curious. And in the galaxy that had conquered humanity, curiosity was the first step toward revenge. The ship traveled through deep space for 3 days. Day spent most of that time in a small cabin that was nicer than anywhere he'd lived since Earth fell. There was a bed, not a cage. Food that tasted like actual food, not nutrient paste. A window that showed the stars sliding past. He didn't trust any of it. On the 3rd day, Commander Taiyang came to his cabin. The Velon warrior stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "The princess wants to see you," Taiyang said. "Come with me." They walked through corridors that hummed with power. The ship was small, but every surface gleamed with careful maintenance. Weapon systems lined some hallways. Medical bays occupied others. This wasn't a pleasure craft. It was a warship pretending to be something else. Taiyang led him to a chamber near the ship's center. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, Princess Hana sat behind a desk made of something that looked like frozen starlight. Minji stood beside her, a datapad in her hands. "Sit," Hana said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Day sat. He kept his hands visible, relaxed but ready. Old habits from a life that felt like someone else's now. Hana studied him for a moment. Then she spoke. "What do you know about the First Contact War?" "Which side's version?" Day asked. A small smile touched her lips. "Smart answer. Tell me yours." Day leaned back in the chair. The memories were old now, but they never really faded. 20 years ago, the Kryn came to Earth. They said they were bringing us into the galactic community. They lied. They wanted resources, labor, test subjects. We fought back, we lost. End of story. "Not quite the end," Hana said. "Your species killed 3 million Kryn soldiers before you fell. 3 million. That's more than the last 10 wars the Kryn fought combined. We still lost." "Yes, but the way you lost scared them." Hana stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars streaked past. The Kryn expected easy prey. They found predators. Weak predators by their standards, but predators nonetheless. "Humans don't give up, even when you should. Why does that matter to you?" Day asked. Hana turned to face him. "Because the Velon hierarchy is dying." The words hung in the air like a knife. Minji shifted uncomfortably. Commander Taiyang's jaw tightened. This was clearly not public knowledge. "We're an old species," Hana continued. "Once we ruled a dozen systems. Now we hold 3. Our population is declining. Our military is strong but small, and there are rivals within our own government who want to overthrow my family and align with the Kryn Empire." "So you're losing," Day said. Join the club. We're not losing yet. But we will be soon, unless we change how we fight. Hana moved back to her desk. She pressed a control, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed Earth, old Earth, before the burning. I've spent 5 years studying your species, Hana said quietly. Everything we could recover from your databases. Your history, your wars, your survival strategies. Do you know what I learned? Day said nothing. Humans are endurance predators. On your world you hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You didn't need to be faster or stronger. You just needed to keep going. That's your gift. Persistence. Hana zoomed the hologram in on different battlefields from Earth's history. You fought each other for thousands of years. You learned every dirty trick, every strategy, every way to win when you shouldn't be able to. She closed the hologram. The galaxy fights with honor and strength. You fight to survive. That's what I need. Dee watched her carefully. You want me to teach your people to fight like humans? No, Hana said. I want you to fight alongside them. I want human minds helping plan our defense, human strategies adapting to our situations. And in return, she paused. This was the moment that mattered. Day could feel it. In return, Hana continued, I'll help you free your people. The cabin went silent. Minji and Taeyang both stared at the princess. Clearly this was news to them too. Day laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. You're one princess of a dying empire. How exactly are you going to free humanity from the Kryn and everyone else who owns us? One person at a time, Hana said simply. I've already started. You're not the first human I've purchased. You're the 6th. That stopped Day cold. What? Hana pressed another control. New images appeared. 5 faces, 2 women, 3 men. All human, all with the same look in their eyes that Day saw in mirrors. The look of people who'd survived when they shouldn't have. Their names are Jun, Sora, Yuna, Huan, and Kyung, Hana said. All former soldiers. All purchased quietly over the past 2 years. They're waiting at a facility I own, a place where no one asks questions. Why? Day asked. The word came out harder than he intended. Because I need warriors who think differently. Because I need people who understand that survival matters more than honor. Because, Hana met his eyes directly. Because the enemy of my enemy might not be my friend, but they can be my weapon. And I can be yours. Day stood up slowly. Commander Taeyang's hand moved toward his weapon, but Hana waved him back. Let me make sure I understand, Day said. You want me to work for you? Help you win your civil war. And in exchange you'll what? Buy more humans? That's still slavery with extra steps. No, Hana said firmly. Any human who joins us does so by choice. They can leave whenever they want. They get paid. They get respect. They get a chance to strike back at the species who destroyed their world. That's more than they have now. Day walked to the window. The stars looked different out here than they had from Earth. Colder somehow. More distant. What makes you think I won't kill you? Take this ship and disappear? Because you're smart enough to know you need us as much as we need you, Hana said. She moved to stand beside him. Alone, you're just another slave who escaped. With us, you're the first step towards something bigger. A resistance, an army, a chance. That's a pretty speech. It's the truth. Day turned to look at her. She was small, this alien princess. Fragile looking, but her eyes held steel. Why humans specifically? There are other warrior species. Stronger ones. Strength isn't everything, Hana said. The Thrawn are stronger. The Korvik are more vicious. The Dren are better soldiers. But none of them think like humans. None of them would rig a whole city to explode just to take out one enemy command ship. None of them would pretend to surrender and then attack with poisoned handshakes. None of them would fight for 100 years over a strip of land that wasn't even strategically important, just because they refused to lose. She smiled, and it wasn't entirely kind. Humans are crazy. You fight when you shouldn't. You plan for scenarios that will never happen. You hold grudges for generations. That's what I need. Controlled insanity. Day almost smiled back. Almost. And if I say no, then I let you go, Hana said. I'll drop you at any station you choose. Give you enough credits to disappear. I won't force you. Why not? Because forced warriors are just slaves with weapons. I need people who choose to fight. That's the difference between your species and everyone else. You chose to fight Earth's last stand even when you knew you'd lose. Choice matters. Day looked back at the hologram of the 5 other humans. They looked tired, worn down but alive, still standing. "I want to meet them," he said finally. "Of course. And I want full access to your intelligence about where humans are being held, who owns them, how they're being used." "Agreed. And when your civil war is over, regardless of who wins, you help me start freeing them. Really freeing them. Not just buying them." Hana extended her hand. It was a human gesture. She must have learned it from studying Earth. "You have my word." Day looked at her hand for a long moment. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that trusting aliens, any aliens, was suicide, but every instinct also told him that dying alone as a slave was worse. He shook her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Welcome to the revolution," Hana said softly. Commander Taiyang cleared his throat. "Your Highness, with respect, the others don't even know about this plan yet. And now you've promised to start a war against the entire galactic slave trade. Do you really think—" "I think," Hana interrupted, "that humanity survived 20 years of slavery and hasn't given up. I think that's exactly the kind of stubborn refusal to die that we need. And I think General Vrek and everyone like him are about to learn why you don't mock humans." She looked at Day. "How long did it take your species to invent nuclear weapons after inventing flight?" "About 40 years. "And how long before you weaponized everything else? Computers, medicine, music, psychology." "We're good at making weapons," Day admitted. "You're good at surviving," Hana corrected. "Weapons are just a tool for that. Now you're going to teach us how." The ship changed course slightly. Through the window, a small moon came into view. It looked like any other dead rock in space, but scanners showed a facility hidden beneath the surface, a place off all official records. Sanctuary 7, where 5 humans waited, where a war would begin. The moon, called Sanctuary 7, had no atmosphere and no life, perfect for hiding secrets. The ship docked inside a massive underground hangar carved from solid rock. Through the windows, Day saw military equipment stored in careful rows. Weapons, vehicles, supplies for a small army, or the beginning of one. "This way," Commander Taeyang said, leading him through a series of corridors lit by cold white lights. Their footsteps echoed off metal walls. The base felt empty, like a tomb waiting to be filled. They passed through 3 security checkpoints. Each one scanned Day with technology he didn't recognize. Each one let him pass only after Taeyang verified his clearance. Whatever this place was, it was serious. Finally, they reached a large training room. It looked like a gym mixed with a military armory. Equipment lined the walls. Training mats covered the floor, and in the center 5 people stood talking. They all stopped when Day entered. 5 pairs of human eyes locked onto him. 5 faces that showed the same scars, the same wariness, the same impossible fact that they were still alive. "Everyone," Taeyang said, his voice formal. "This is Day. The princess has brought him to join your group." A tall man with a shaved head stepped forward. His arms were covered in old burn scars. "I'm Jun," he said in Korean. The sound of his native language after so many years of speaking trade pidgin hit Day like a punch. Day answered in the same language. "Day, just Day." A woman with short black hair and eyes like chips of ice moved next. "Sora, former Air Force back when we had one." "Yuna," said another woman. She was smaller, wiry, with hands that never stopped moving. Nervous energy radiated from her. "Marine." "Juan." This man looked older than the others, maybe 40. Gray streaked his hair. "I was a combat medic. Still am, I guess." The last person was younger, maybe early 20s. He had the kind of face that might have been handsome before whatever had happened to put that deadness in his eyes. "Kyung Infantry." They all stared at each other for a moment. The silence stretched thin and uncomfortable. Finally, June spoke again. "So, the princess bought another one of us. What did she promise you?" "Same thing she promised you, probably," Day said. "A chance. A chance at what?" Sora crossed her arms. "We've been here for months, training with their weapons, learning their tactics. But for what? She won't tell us the actual plan." "The plan is to help her win a civil war," Day said. He saw no point in lying. These were soldiers. They'd figure it out anyway. Her family is about to get overthrown. She needs fighters who think different, who fight different. Kyung laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "So we're mercenaries now, slaves with paychecks." "Better than actual slaves," Yuna said quietly. "Is it?" Kyung challenged. We're still owned. Still controlled. We just get better food and prettier cages. Nobody's making you stay, June said. His voice held an edge. Doors right there. And go where? Kyung shot back. We're on a secret moon base in the middle of nowhere. We don't have ships. Don't have money. Don't have... Enough! Hwan's voice cut through the argument. Fighting each other doesn't help. They fell silent. Dae watched the dynamics carefully. June was the unofficial leader. Sora was the skeptic. Yuna was the nervous one who probably compensated with aggression. Hwan was the peacekeeper, and Kyung was the angry one, still processing trauma that probably felt like yesterday. Dae had been all of them at various points. The princess says she'll help free humans, Dae said. After the war. That's the deal. You believe her? Sora asked. No, but I believe she needs us. That's enough for now. June nodded slowly. Practical. I like that. He gestured around the room. Welcome to the team, I guess. We train here every day. Taeyang and some of his people teach us how to use Veilon weapons and technology. We're getting good at it. How good? Dae asked. Instead of answering, June walked to the wall and grabbed 2 training weapons. They looked like rifles but glowed with contained energy. He tossed one to Dae. Show us what you've got, June said. The others spread out, forming a loose circle. This was a test. Dae understood that. New person meant proving yourself. It was the same in every military unit he'd ever seen. Taeyang moved to a control panel. Standard training scenario. No lethal settings. First one to score 3 hits wins. Begin. The room's lights dimmed. Holographic barriers appeared, creating cover and obstacles. June moved immediately, circling left. Dae went right, using a pillar for cover. The weapons were lighter than he expected. The balance was different from human guns. But the principle was the same. Point, shoot, don't get shot. June fired. The energy blast hit where Dae had been a second before, fast. June was fast. Dae rolled, came up shooting. His blast caught June in the shoulder. A light blinked on June's vest, 1 hit. They circled each other like wolves. June feinted left, then dove right. His shot went wide. Dae's didn't, 2 hits. Not bad, June muttered. They moved through the holographic maze. Dae's military training from Earth came back like muscle memory. Cover, movement, breathing. For a moment, he was back in Seoul's ruins, fighting the first Kryn invasion. Back when he still believed they could win. He pushed the memory away. Focus on now. June tried a desperate rush. Brave but stupid. Dae sidestepped and put the 3rd shot into his back. The vest blinked 3 times. Match over, Taeyang announced. Winner Dae. The lights came back up. June was breathing hard, but he was grinning. Okay, you're good. Really good. You're not bad yourself, Dae said. It was true. June had picked up alien weapons faster than should be possible. We're all good, Sora said. That's why we're still alive. But being good individually doesn't make us a team. She was right. Dae had seen it too. They moved like 5 separate fighters, not one unit. How long have you been training together? Dae asked. 6 months, Yuna said. But we don't trust each other. Not really. Why not? Hwan spoke up. Because we've all been slaves for years. We've all seen what happens when you trust the wrong person. We've all been betrayed. The room went quiet. That truth settled over them like a heavy blanket. I was sold by my own squad leader, Kyung said suddenly. His voice was flat, emotionless. He traded me to the Kryn for medicine. For his daughter, he said. Maybe that was true. Doesn't change what he did. My pilot betrayed our whole unit, Sora said. Gave our position to the enemy for a promise of safety. They killed her anyway. Killed everyone but me. One by one, they shared their stories, betrayal, loss, survival at costs that still haunted them. Dae listened, and when they were done, he spoke. I killed my best friend, he said quietly. He was injured, screaming. The Kryn were using human screams to draw out survivors. So I killed him quick, quiet. Then I hid and listened to them use his corpse as bait for 2 hours. The silence was absolute. We've all done things, Dae continued. Things we had to do. Things that made us into what we are now. That's why we don't trust. But here's the truth. We're all each other has. 6 humans in a galaxy that wants us dead or chained. We don't have to be friends. But we have to be a team, or we're just 6 targets instead of 1 threat. June studied him for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. Okay, team, Dae shook it. Then Sora, then the others one by one. Commander Taeyang, June called out. Let's run a full team exercise. All 6 of us. Taeyang looked at them carefully. Then he nodded. Very well. Scenario hostage rescue. You have 15 minutes. There will be armed opponents. They'll be set to stun. If they hit you, you're out. The room transformed. Holographic walls appeared, creating a complex building layout. Somewhere inside, a simulated hostage waited, and between them and the target, Veilon soldiers in training armor took positions. Weapons are live on stun setting, Taeyang continued. Your opponents are real soldiers. They won't go easy on you. Begin. The 6 humans huddled together. This was it. First real test as a team. I've got a plan, Day said. But it's going to sound crazy. Good, Sora said. Crazy is what we do best, Dee grinned. It felt strange on his face. He hadn't grinned in years. Okay, here's what we're going to do. 20 minutes later, Commander Taeyang stood in the control room staring at the monitors in disbelief. All 12 of his trained soldiers were down, stunned, defeated, and the 6 humans were extracting the hostage using a route no one had expected them to take, through the ventilation system. Like action movie heroes from old Earth films. Princess Hana stood beside him watching. Still think I wasted my money, Commander? No, Your Highness, Taeyang said slowly. I think you might have just bought yourself an army. Down in the training room, 6 humans celebrated their first victory together. Small, meaningless in the grand scale of things. But victories had to start somewhere. And for the first time since Earth fell, they felt like more than survivors. They felt like soldiers again. 3 months of training changed everything. The 6 humans learned to work as one unit. They learned Veilon weapons, Veilon tactics, Veilon technology, but more importantly, they taught the Veilon something in return. They taught them that rules were meant to be broken. Day stood in the command center of Sanctuary 7, watching news feeds from across Veilon space. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his gut, that same instinct that had kept him alive through the fall of Earth. Too quiet, he muttered. Sora looked up from her station. She'd taken to intelligence work like she was born for it. What do you mean? Duke Quan's forces. They've been positioning for months. Building strength. Now suddenly everything stops. No movements. No communications we can intercept, nothing. Maybe they gave up, Kyung suggested. He didn't sound like he believed it. Nobody gives up when they're winning, June said. He was cleaning his weapon, a habit he'd picked up from old military days. They're planning something big. The alarm started before Day could respond. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. Commander Taeyang's voice came over the speakers, tense and urgent. All personnel to stations. We have multiple reports of attacks across Veilon Prime. Duke Quan's forces have begun their coup. The royal family is under siege. I repeat, the capital is under attack. The humans moved immediately, heading for the armory. They drilled for this, prepared for this, but drills were different from reality. In the command center, Princess Hana stood before a holographic display. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the edge of the console hard enough that her knuckles turned white. Minji worked frantically at another station, coordinating with loyalist forces. Status, Hana demanded. Duke Quan has Kryn mercenaries, Taeyang reported. Thousands of them. They hit the palace during the Festival of Stars when most of our military was on leave. The Royal Guard is holding, but they're outnumbered 5-1. Where's my father? The king is secure in the inner palace. But they're trapped. Quan's forces control the approach routes. Any relief force will be cut to pieces before they reach the palace. Hana closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, they were harder. How long can the guard hold? 48 hours. Maybe less. And how long until our fleet can reach Veilon Prime? 3 days minimum. The math was simple and terrible. The Royal Guard would fall before help arrived. The king would die. Duke Quan would take the throne and align with the Kryn Empire. Everything Hana had worked for would end. Your Highness, Minji said quietly, we should evacuate. Get you to safety while we still can? No. Your Highness, I said no. Hana turned to face them all. I will not abandon my father to die. I will not hand the throne to Quan without a fight. Then what do we do? Taeyang asked. We have maybe 50 soldiers here. Good soldiers, but 50 against thousands? It's suicide. Not 50 soldiers, a voice said from the doorway. 56. Everyone turned. Day stood there with the other 5 humans behind him. They were armed and armored in Veilon combat gear. They looked small compared to the towering Veilon warriors. But they looked ready. "You're not coming," Taeyang said flatly. "This isn't your fight." "You promised us a chance to fight back," Day said, looking directly at Hana. "This is that chance. Besides, you said humans fight different. Time to prove it." "They'll kill you," Hana said. Not arguing, just stating a fact. "Everyone dies," Sora said. "Question is whether it means something." Hana studied them for a long moment. Then she looked at the tactical display showing the palace under siege, at her father trapped inside. "At the impossible odds, what do you propose?" she asked. Day stepped up to the holographic display. His fingers moved over the controls, bringing up a detailed map of the capital city. "The problem is Quan controls all the approach routes. Any conventional assault gets slaughtered, so we don't do conventional." "What then?" Taeyang challenged. "We go in through a way nobody expects, a way that's considered too disgusting for warrior species to use." Day zoomed in on the palace's infrastructure, the waste disposal system. The room went silent. "You can't be serious," Minji said. "Those tunnels are perfect," Day interrupted. "They run under the entire city. They're not guarded because nobody thinks anyone would be crazy enough to use them. The tunnels connect to the palace's lower levels. We can get inside while Quan's forces are looking the other way." "And once inside?" Taeyang asked. "You're still facing thousands of enemies." "We don't fight thousands. We fight smart." Day's fingers moved across the display, marking points throughout the palace. "We hit them where it hurts. Power systems, communications, supply lines. Make them think there are hundreds of us instead of 6. Chaos is a weapon if you know how to use it." June stepped forward. "On Earth, we called it asymmetric warfare. The enemy has the numbers and the firepower, so you don't fight their fight. You make them fight yours, in the dark, in confusion, against an enemy they can't see or predict. Guerrilla tactics," Yuna added. "Hit and run. Never stay in one place. Never fight fair." Hana looked at Commander Taeyang. "Could it work? On paper? Maybe." Taeyang studied the map. "But the risks are enormous. If they're caught, they're dead. If they fail, we lose 6 fighters and gain nothing. If they somehow succeed," he trailed off, shaking his head. "I've never seen tactics like this. I don't even know how to evaluate them." "That's the point," Dee said. "Quan and his Kryn mercenaries are expecting a military response. Formations, tactics, things they understand. They're not expecting 6 humans to turn the palace into a nightmare." Hana walked slowly around the holographic display. She was calculating, weighing options. Finally, she spoke. "If you do this, you'll be on your own. I can't send support without compromising your approach. You'll have no extraction plan, no backup, no way out if things go wrong." "Story of our lives," Kyung said quietly. "Why?" Hana asked. She looked at each of them. "Why risk this? You could stay here, safe. Wait for the war to end and then slip away. Why fight for a species that isn't even your own?" Day met her eyes. "Because you kept your word. You gave us weapons, training, respect. That's more than anyone else has given us in 20 years. And because—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because watching another royal family fall while we do nothing? That's how Earth ended. Maybe we can't change the past. But we can change this." The other humans nodded. They'd discussed this. Made the choice together. 6 against thousands. Insane odds. Exactly the kind of fight humans specialized in. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed. Not a small nod, but a full formal bow of respect. "Then go with my blessing," she said. "And my gratitude." 2 hours later, a small cargo ship broke away from Sanctuary 7. It looked like a standard transport, the kind that moved through space by the thousands every day. Nothing special, nothing worth noticing. Inside, 6 humans checked their weapons one last time. "Everyone clear on the plan?" Day asked. "Get in through the sewers," Sora said. "Infiltrate the palace. Make Quan's forces think hell followed them home. Simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Juan said. But he was smiling. "Which is exactly why it might work." The ship's pilot, a Veilon loyal to the princess, spoke over the intercom. "Approaching Veilon Prime, they're challenging us. Broadcasting credentials now." They waited. If Quan's forces suspected anything, the ship would be destroyed before they even reached the planet. "Cleared for landing," the pilot announced. They bought it, taking you down to the old industrial district. That's as close as I can get without raising suspicions. The ship descended through the atmosphere. Through the viewports, they could see the capital city. Smoke rose from several districts. Fires burned where fighting had broken out. And in the center, the royal palace stood like an island under siege. They landed in an abandoned warehouse district. The humans disembarked quickly, moving through shadows. The pilot would wait as long as he could, but he couldn't promise to stay. If he was discovered, the whole operation was blown. Day led them through narrow streets until they reached a service entrance. The kind maintenance workers used to access the city's underground systems. The kind nobody paid attention to. Here, he said, prying open a heavy door. Inside, darkness waited, and the smell. The waste disposal system smelled exactly as bad as expected. Just like home, June said dryly. They climbed down into the tunnels. The darkness swallowed them. Above, the city prepared for war. Below, 6 humans moved through the filth and the dark, heading toward the heart of the enemy's power. In the palace, Kryn mercenaries stood guard. They were confident. Victory was hours away. They controlled everything. What they didn't know was that victory had rules, and humans had never been good at following rules. The war was about to change, not with armies or fleets, but with 6 people who refused to die quietly. 6 people who understood that sometimes the only way to win was to fight like you'd already lost everything, because they had. The tunnels were worse than Day remembered sewers being on Earth. The air was thick with chemicals his human nose couldn't identify. Water dripped from pipes overhead, splashing into streams of waste that flowed past their feet. The darkness was absolute except for their helmet lights. They moved in silence, following the map Day had memorized. Every sound echoed strangely in the tunnels. Every footstep felt too loud, but nobody complained. This was just another kind of hell, and they'd all lived through worse. After 30 minutes of walking through the dark, June stopped. His hand went up in a fist, the old military signal for halt. Everyone froze. "Hear that?" he whispered. Day listened. Footsteps above. Heavy ones. Kryn mercenaries on patrol. They were getting close to the palace. "We're under the outer walls," Sora confirmed, checking her scanner. "Access point should be 50 meters ahead." They continued forward, moving even more carefully now. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where multiple pipes converged. On the far side, a maintenance ladder led up to a sealed hatch. "That's our way in," Day said. "Once we open it, we're committed. No turning back." "Was there ever a way back?" Kyung asked. Nobody answered. They all knew the truth. This was a one-way trip. They either succeeded or they died trying. Juan climbed the ladder first. He was the quietest, the best at moving unseen. At the top, he worked on the hatch with tools they'd brought. The locking mechanism was designed to keep people out, not in. It took him 3 minutes to bypass it. The hatch opened with a soft hiss. Light spilled down into the tunnel. Juan peered up carefully, then gave the all-clear signal. One by one, they climbed up into the palace's lower levels. They emerged in a maintenance corridor deep in the building's guts. Pipes and cables ran along the walls. Service lights provided dim illumination, and thankfully no guards. "Weapons check," Day ordered quietly. They'd brought Valon energy rifles and human-made explosives. The best of both worlds. The rifles were powerful but quiet when set to low power. The explosives were crude but effective. "Sora, you're on communications. Jam everything you can. Yuna and Kyung, you take the power systems. Joan and Juan find the supplies. I'll map our escape routes." Day looked at each of them. "Remember, we're ghosts. They don't see us until we want them to. Move." They split up, each team heading toward their objective. Day moved alone through the corridors, his rifle ready. He'd done this before on Earth. Infiltration, sabotage. The Kryn had taught him everything he needed to know about being invisible. He found a security station unmanned and slipped inside. The computers were different from Earth technology, but Princess Hana had taught him the basics. He pulled up the palace layout on the screens. There. The royal guard was dug in around the inner palace, 3 levels up. They held a defensive perimeter, but it was shrinking. Duke Quan's forces were pushing in from all sides. The guard had maybe 12 hours left. Maybe less. Day downloaded the map to his helmet display, then planted a virus in the security system, something Sora had cooked up. It wouldn't shut everything down immediately. That would alert them. Instead, it would spread slowly, causing random glitches. Cameras would fail. Doors would lock. Small things, but small things added up. His communicator buzzed softly. Sora's voice came through, barely a whisper. Communications hub located. Planting jammers now. They'll activate in 30 minutes. Good, stay quiet. Day moved on, marking his path on the map. Escape routes were critical. You could win the battle and still die if you couldn't get out. Meanwhile, 2 levels down, Yuna and Kyung reached the power distribution center. 2 Kryn guards stood outside the door. Massive creatures 8 feet tall and covered in scales that could stop small arms fire. Yuna signaled to Kyung. They'd practice this. Human tactics, not fair. Not honorable. But effective. Kyung triggered a small noisemaker down the corridor. It made a sound like someone dropping something. Both guards turned to look. That was the moment Yuna needed. She moved fast and silent. Her blade found the gap in the first guard's armor at the neck. The Kryn fell without a sound. His vocal cord severed before he could scream. Kyung took the second one the same way. Clear, Kyung breathed. They dragged the bodies into a side room and locked the door. Someone would find them eventually, but not immediately. That's all they needed. Time, minutes, seconds. Every bit helped. Inside the power center, they planted charges on the primary conduits. Not enough to destroy everything. Just enough to cause cascading failures. The timer was set for 1 hour. On level 6, June and Juan found the supply depot. 20 Kryn mercenaries guarded it, too many to fight directly. So they didn't fight. They sabotaged. Juan was a combat medic, which meant he knew medicine, which meant he knew poisons. He'd synthesized something from Veilon medical supplies. Not lethal, but incapacitating. It was already in the guards' water supply. In 20 minutes, they'd start feeling sick. In an hour, they'd be too ill to stand. June planted the rest of their explosives throughout the depot. Food, medicine, ammunition. Everything Duke Quan's forces needed to sustain a siege. When it went up, the explosion would be spectacular. They met back at the insertion point 60 minutes after separating. Everyone was there. Everyone was alive. Status, Day said. Comms are jammed, Sora reported. They can't coordinate between units anymore. It's chaos up there. Power's rigged to fail in 30 minutes, Yuna confirmed. Supply depot is ready to blow, June added. Day nodded. Then let's give them something to really worry about. They moved up, level by level, always staying in the shadows. The palace was huge, built to house thousands. That gave them room to work. Room to disappear. Room to become the nightmare Duke Quan hadn't planned for. On level 3, they found a squad of Kryn mercenaries. 10 of them moving in formation, professional, dangerous. The humans let them pass, then followed at a distance. When the squad reached a junction, Day signaled. All 6 humans opened fire at once. The Kryn had shields. Good shields. They didn't go down immediately. But the humans weren't trying to kill them all. They were trying to hurt them, scare them. 3 Kryn fell before the others could return fire. The humans were already gone, disappearing into maintenance corridors the massive Kryn couldn't follow. What was that? One mercenary roared. I don't know. They were here, then they weren't. Call for backup. Comms are down. The humans heard the confusion in their voices. Fear. That was the point. They hit another patrol 10 minutes later. Same tactic. Strike fast, disappear, leave bodies and questions. Then the power failed. The entire palace plunged into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in, but they only made it worse. Long shadows, flickering illumination. Every corridor became a place where ghosts could hide. Duke Quan stood in his command post watching reports flood in. Nothing made sense. His forces controlled the palace. They had overwhelming numbers. But somehow they were losing. What do you mean the comms are jammed? We don't know, my lord. Something is interfering with all signals. Then use runners. We did, my lord. 3 of them disappeared between here and the north wing. Disappeared? Yes, my lord, just gone. Duke Quan's advisor, a scarred Kryn general, spoke up. My lord, our forces are reporting attacks from an unknown enemy. Small teams, maybe individuals. They strike and vanish before we can respond. How many? We don't know. Estimates range from 20 to 50 attackers. 50 attackers shouldn't matter. They had 3,000 troops in the palace. But the numbers didn't reflect reality. Reality was soldiers finding their comrades dead in locked rooms. Reality was patrols that went out and never came back. Reality was a palace that had become hostile, where every shadow might hide an enemy. Lock down the inner palace approaches, Quan ordered. Nothing gets through, nothing. But it was too late for lockdowns. The humans were already inside, moving through the walls like ghosts, using maintenance shafts and air ducts and every route the Kryn considered beneath them. In the inner palace, the royal guard heard the explosions, felt the building shake as the supply depot went up in flames, saw the lights fail and the enemy start to panic. Commander Taiyang, commanding the defense, stared at the reports coming in. Something impossible was happening. Something that gave him hope for the first time in hours. "Who's doing this?" one of his soldiers asked. Taiyang thought of 6 humans in his training facility, 6 soldiers who fought like nothing he'd ever seen. 6 people who the princess had called theirs. "Reinforcements," he said simply. "Hold this position. Help is coming." Deep in the palace, June stumbled. His leg buckled. He'd been hit during the last engagement. Not badly, but enough that it slowed him down. "I'm fine," he said, seeing the others looking at him. "Keep moving." "You're bleeding," Juan said, already breaking out medical supplies. "Later, we don't have time," but they made time. That was the human way. Nobody left behind, not ever. They held position in a maintenance room while Juan worked on June's leg. Applied pressure, sealed the wound. It would hold for now. Outside, Kryn mercenaries searched for them. Getting closer. The humans could hear them shouting to each other, coordinating despite the jammed communications. "Can you move?" Day asked June. "I can fight. That's not what I asked." June stood up, testing the leg. It hurt, but it held. "I can move." They escaped through an air duct, crawling through spaces barely big enough for humans. Princess Hana watched the tactical displays from her ship, now in orbit above Valon Prime. The situation was changing. Duke Quan's forces were in disarray. The Royal Guard was holding, and somewhere in that palace, 6 humans were turning the siege into a nightmare. "Your Highness," Minji said carefully. "The fleet will arrive in 12 hours. We should wait for—" "No," Hana interrupted. She'd been planning this for hours. "By the time the fleet arrives, my father will either be dead or Quan will have consolidated his position. We need to end this now." "How?" Hana stood and walked to the communication station. "Get me a direct line to Duke Quan. I don't care if you have to override every jammer in the palace. Do it." It took 10 minutes, but they got through. Duke Quan's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, angry, and worried. "Princess," he said with false courtesy, "have you called to surrender?" "I'm calling to offer you a chance, Duke. Stop this now. Stand down your forces. Face trial. You might live," Quan laughed. "I control the capital. I have 3,000 troops. Your father's guard numbers less than 200. What makes you think you have any leverage?" "Because you're losing," Hana said simply. "Your supply depot is destroyed. Your communications are jammed. Your soldiers are dying in the dark, picked off by an enemy you can't even see. How long until your forces break? How long until they realize this coup is failing?" Quan's expression darkened. "Who are they? Who is attacking my forces? That's not important. What's important is that they won't stop. Not until you're dead or my father is safe. So I'm offering you a deal. Meet me in the throne room. Just you and me. Traditional Valon duel. Winner takes the throne." The screen was silent. Quan was thinking. In Valon culture, a formal duel between nobles was legally binding. Winner took everything. Loser took nothing, usually because they were dead. "You think you can beat me?" Quan asked. "I've been a warrior for 40 years. You're a princess who plays at politics. Then you have nothing to lose. Accept the duel. If you win, you get the throne and honor. If you refuse, you're just another usurper who's afraid to fight." It was bait, and Quan knew it. But it was also political pressure. His Kryn mercenaries followed strength. If he appeared weak, afraid to face one princess, they might abandon him. "Fine," Quan said. Throne room. 2 hours. You and me. But know this, princess. When I kill you, your father dies next." The screen went dark. Minji turned to Hana, her face pale. "Your Highness, you can't be serious. Quan is a trained warrior. He'll kill you." "Probably," Hana agreed. "But I'm not actually planning to fight him fairly." She activated a secure channel. "Day, can you hear me?" Static, then Day's voice came through. "We hear you. I've challenged Quan to a duel in the throne room. 2 hours. I need you to turn that room into a trap." "With what time and resources?" Day asked. But he didn't sound like he was saying no. He sounded like he was planning. "You have whatever's left of the palace's systems, and you have 2 hours. Do what you do best." Hana paused. "And Day?" "Thank you. For everything. Thank us when we're done. Moving now. The channel closed. Minji stared at Hana. What are you planning? War, Hana said simply. The human way. In the palace, the 6 humans converged on the throne room. It was massive, built to impress visiting dignitaries from across the galaxy. High ceilings, marble floors, columns that rose like trees, and enough space for what they needed to do. 2 hours, Day said, studying the room. We need to turn this into a killing ground without it being obvious. The columns, Sora said immediately. They're hollow. We can run cables through them. Rigging for sound, light, maybe even structural charges. The floor, Yuna added. It's polished stone, slippery. We could make it more slippery in strategic places. June limped over to the throne itself. This platform is elevated. Good sight lines. Bad escape routes for anyone standing on it. They worked fast. 2 hours wasn't enough time. But humans were good at making impossible timelines work. They ran cables through the columns, connecting them to the palace's emergency power system. They rigged acoustic weapons in the ceiling. Hidden behind decorative panels, they treated sections of the floor with a chemical compound that would make it frictionless when activated. Juan worked on the lighting. Every bulb in the throne room could now be controlled independently. Strobing, darkness, blinding brightness. Whatever they needed, Kyung and Dae planted their remaining explosives, not enough to destroy the room, but enough to shape the battlefield, to create choke points, to turn beautiful architecture into weapons. With 30 minutes left, they finished. The throne room looked exactly as it had before. Beautiful, impressive, completely normal. But it was a trap. Every column, every light, every shadow, all of it designed to give a small human team every possible advantage against superior numbers. Positions, Day ordered. Quan won't come alone. When this goes bad, it's going to go bad fast. They scattered, taking hidden positions throughout the room, in the ceiling spaces, behind columns, in maintenance corridors that connected to the throne room. Invisible unless you knew where to look. And then they waited. Princess Hana arrived first. She came alone as tradition demanded for a formal duel. She wore ceremonial armor, light and decorative. She carried a blade that had belonged to her family for generations. She looked every bit the noble princess meeting her fate with dignity. She also wore a small communication device hidden in her ear. Duke Quan arrived exactly on time. But he didn't come alone. Behind him, 50 Kryn mercenaries marched into the throne room. Elite troops. The best he had. You were supposed to come alone, Hana said. I did come alone, Quan replied. These are merely witnesses. To ensure fairness, it was a lie. The witnesses were armed. They formed a circle around the throne platform, cutting off all exits. This wasn't going to be a duel. It was going to be an execution. Quan walked up to the platform where Hana stood. Up close, he was enormous. Twice her size. Covered in scars from decades of battle, he smiled down at her with contempt. Any last words, princess? Yes, Hana said. She touched the communicator in her ear. Now, the lights went out. The throne room plunged into absolute darkness. Kryn mercenaries shouted, activating helmet lights, but the lights only made it worse, creating wild shadows that moved and danced. Then the sound hit. Acoustic weapons hidden in the ceiling activated, emitting frequencies designed to disorient. Not painful, but confusing, making it hard to think, hard to coordinate. The floor beneath the mercenaries suddenly became frictionless. Soldiers stumbled and fell, their heavy armor working against them. In the chaos, muzzle flashes lit the darkness. The humans had opened fire from hidden positions, targeting the mercenaries' weak points. Duke Quan lunged at Hana, but she'd already moved. She'd trained for this moment. Not to fight, but to survive long enough. A figure dropped from the ceiling onto Quan's back. Die. He'd been waiting directly above the throne platform. His blade found the gap in Quan's armor at the shoulder. Not a killing blow, but painful. Distracting. Quan roared and threw Day off. The human hit the ground and rolled, disappearing into the darkness. Cowards! Quan screamed. Fight me with honor! Honor? Day's voice came from the shadows. It echoed weirdly, impossible to locate. You brought 50 soldiers to a duel. You don't get to talk about honor. The mercenaries were trying to regroup, but every time they formed up, another attack came from a different direction. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. Shadows with teeth. June took out 3 mercenaries from a hidden position in the columns. Zora's rifle fire came from above, raining down from the ceiling spaces. Yuna and Kyung worked together, flanking the enemy, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. But the mercenaries were professionals. They started adapting, using their numbers, creating overlapping fields of fire. "It's not enough," Kyung said over the comm. "There's too many of them." "Then we changed the game," Day replied. He triggered the explosives they'd planted. Not all of them. Just the ones around the perimeter. Columns cracked and fell, blocking the exits. The mercenaries were trapped in the throne room now. Trapped with 6 humans who'd turned the entire space into a weapon. Duke Quan realized the truth then. He wasn't fighting soldiers. He was fighting survivors, people who'd learned to turn disadvantage into advantage, who'd weaponized their own weakness. He was fighting humans.
Kill them all!
Quan ordered. "I don't care how many we lose. Kill them!" The mercenaries pressed forward, 30 of them still standing, against 6 humans and 1 princess. Hana had made her way to Commander Taeyang's position. The royal guard had been waiting for their moment. Now it came. They poured into the throne room from secure passages, catching the mercenaries from behind. The throne room became a battlefield. No formations, no tactics, just desperate combat in the dark. Day found himself facing Duke Quan directly. The Duke was wounded but still dangerous. Still stronger. Still better armed. "You're just a human," Quan spat. "A slave. What makes you think you can face me?" "She didn't say I was hers," Day said, circling. "She said I was ours. That means we own this now. This planet. This palace." This moment, Quan charged. 3 months after the coup, the palace gardens bloomed with flowers from a dozen worlds. The king had ordered them rebuilt as a symbol of renewal, of survival, of the future they'd fought for. Day walked through those gardens alone. His wounds had healed, though he still limped slightly when tired. The scars would never fully fade. But then again, they never did. He found Princess Hana sitting beside a fountain. She wore simple clothes today, not the ceremonial armor or royal dresses. She looked younger like this. More human, though she'd probably hate the comparison. "I've been expecting you," she said without turning around. "Am I that predictable?" "You're human. You came to negotiate. It's what your species does." She gestured to the bench beside her. "Sit, let's talk about the price." Day sat. The fountain made a peaceful sound. Hard to believe this same palace had been a war zone 3 months ago. Hard to believe they'd survived. "The king offered us citizenship," Day said. "Land, titles, everything we could want. But you're refusing." "We're not refusing. We're negotiating better terms." Hana smiled slightly. "What do you want, Day?" "You know what I want. What we all want. I want you to help free humanity. I gave you my word. I keep my promises. Words are easy. Actions are hard." Day turned to look at her directly. "The Kryn Empire controls most of the human population. Billions of us scattered across hundreds of worlds. Some are slaves. Some are experiments. Some are just forgotten. How do you propose we free them?" "Carefully," Hana said. "The war with Duke Quan showed the galaxy that the Veilon hierarchy is stronger than they thought. But we're still small. We can't challenge the Kryn directly. Not yet. Then what can you do?" "I can start with what I control. I'm establishing a program. Any human in Veilon space can claim sanctuary. We'll give them citizenship, protection, a home." She paused. "It's not much, but it's a start. And beyond Veilon space? Beyond our borders, I have to be more careful. But I have influence, trading partners, diplomatic channels. I can make it expensive for species to hold humans. I can create economic incentives for freeing them. I can spread the word that humans are valuable allies, not slaves." Day was quiet for a moment, thinking. It wasn't the immediate liberation he wanted, but it was realistic, practical, more than anyone else had offered. "There's something else," Hana said. "My father wants to establish a special military unit. Veilon soldiers trained in human tactics, guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat. Everything you taught us, he wants you to lead it." "Me?" "You and the others. You'd have full authority, your own command, resources, and most importantly, you'd have the ability to recruit." "Recruit who?" "Anyone," Hana said. "Humans, Veilon. Any species that wants to learn how to fight like you do, how to win when you shouldn't be able to. We'd give you a ship, a base, everything you need to build something new. Day felt something stir in his chest. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. And in exchange, you continue to help us. Train our people. Share your knowledge. When we need strategic advice, you provide it. When we face threats, you help us face them. Partnership, not servitude. Partners, Day repeated the word slowly. That's what you said when you bought me. He's ours. I still don't fully understand what you meant. Hana stood and walked to the fountain's edge. Her reflection rippled in the water. In Valon culture, ours doesn't mean ownership. It means belonging, family. When I said you were ours, I meant you belonged with us, not to us. With us. Pretty distinction for someone who bought me at a slave auction. Yes, Hana admitted. I know how it looked. How it still looks. I paid money for you. For all of you. That's a sin I'll carry. But I couldn't free you there. Not publicly. The only way to get you out was to buy you. To make the galaxy think you were just more slaves. And then quietly, give you the choice. The choice to fight your war. The choice to fight, period. Against anyone. For anything. Hana turned to face him. Day, you could leave tomorrow. Take the others. I'd give you a ship and enough credits to start over somewhere far from here. No obligations, no debts. You've earned that much. But you're hoping we stay. I'm hoping you see what I see. An opportunity, not just for revenge, but for change. Hana's voice grew passionate. The galaxy is built on strength. The strong rule. The weak serve. That's been the law for thousands of years. But you proved something in that throne room. You proved that strength isn't everything. That intelligence matters. That adaptation matters. That the species everyone dismissed as weak can be the most dangerous of all. She walked closer to him. Stay, help me build something new. A military that doesn't just rely on size and power. A strategy that values thinking over tradition. And most importantly, a future where humanity has a place at the table. Not as slaves, not as curiosities, but as equals. Day stood up. He walked to the edge of the garden where the city spread out below. Phalon Prime rebuilt and recovering. In the distance he could see ships launching from the spaceport. Some carried trade goods, some carried soldiers. And somewhere among all those ships there had to be some carrying humans. Slaves heading to unknown fates. I talked to the others, Day said. About your offer. You want to know what they said? Tell me. June wants to stay. He says he's tired of running, tired of hiding. He wants to fight back even if it's one person at a time. Sora agrees. She thinks your information network could help us track where humans are being held. Find the largest concentrations. Plan rescues, Dee continued. Yuna and Kyung are less sure. They've been slaves longer than the rest of us. Trust doesn't come easy. But they're willing to try, to see if this partnership is real or just another cage with nicer paint. And Juan? Juan says he's a medic. He goes where he's needed. And right now he's needed here. And you? Hana asked quietly. Day turned to face her. I'm the hardest to convince. Because I've seen what happens when humans trust aliens. I've seen the promises. The treaties. The assurances that Earth would be welcomed into the galactic community. I watched all of it burn. I'm not them. No, you're not. You're one princess of one small empire. You have good intentions. But the road to hell is paved with those, as we used to say on Earth. Day's voice hardened. So here's my counteroffer. We stay. We train your people. We help you build this new military unit. But we do it our way. No oversight. No second guessing. When we say we need something, you provide it. When we identify a target for rescue, you support it. And if at any point we decide this isn't working, we walk away. No questions. No consequences. That's asking for a lot of trust. Yes, it is. But you asked us to trust you first. Now I'm asking you to trust us back. Real partnership goes both ways. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she held out her hand again. Deal, but I have one condition of my own. What? Teach me, personally, how to fight like you do. How to think like you do. I'm going to rule this hierarchy someday. I need to understand what makes humans different. What makes you survive when you shouldn't. Day looked at her extended hand. Small. Delicate, but steady. He thought about Earth. About the billions who'd died. About the billions more who still suffered in chains across the galaxy. He thought about 6 humans who'd somehow survived and found each other and won a battle they shouldn't have. He shook her hand. Deal, but fair warning, Princess. Human training isn't gentle. We don't believe in learning the easy way. Good, Hana said. I've had enough easy. Show me hard. 6 weeks later, a ship left Valon Prime. It was a military vessel, but it carried no flag or identification. Just a number. Unit 7, some people called it other names. The Ghost Unit, the Nightmare Squadron. The Princess's Demons. The 6 humans called it something simpler. They called it Hope. Inside, Day stood in the command center with his team around him. They'd been given everything Hana promised. Weapons, technology, intelligence, and most importantly, freedom to operate. First mission, Sora said, pulling up a holographic display. We've located a slave transport, 30 humans aboard, being shipped to a mining colony in Kryn space. The transport is lightly guarded. We could hit it, free the prisoners, and be gone before anyone knows we're there. It's a start, June said. It's more than a start, Yuna corrected. It's a statement. That humanity isn't done fighting. That we're still here. Kyung looked at Dai. Your call, boss. Do we do this? Day looked at each of them, his team, his family, as much as anyone could be family after everything they'd lost. Then he looked at the hologram showing the slave transport and the 30 human lives aboard it. We do this, he said, and then we do it again, and again, as many times as it takes. We free them one ship at a time, one colony at a time, one person at a time, until every human in this galaxy knows they're not alone, that somewhere out there people are fighting for them. That's going to take years, Juan said. Maybe decades. Then we better get started. The ship's engines powered up. Through the viewports, Valon Prime fell away. Ahead, the stars waited, billions of them, and scattered among those stars, billions of humans, waiting, hoping, surviving. In the palace gardens, Princess Hana stood with Commander Taiyang. They watched the ship disappear into the black. Do you think they'll succeed? Taiyang asked. I think they're human, Hana said.